I have to tell you that I've had this truth bubbling inside me for about a month and a half now. And my oldest son, when I was just on my way out the door this morning, asked a question, and it was a question that was just seemed in my spirit anyway to be somewhat related to what I was preparing to share here. And so he had about a 5-minute unload of this sermon in summary. He's probably still trying to recover. So I will try not to be too overwhelming, but I want to tell you this is something that has changed my life, and it can change yours. So that's what I want to share. I don't know what kind of Bible you have. I got this one and a whole bunch of others. This is my favorite Bible because it's edited. I've taken all the verses that I don't like. Wait a minute. Before you laugh now, you better realize you all do the same thing. All right? I mean, you ready to laugh? When was the last time you read the first 16 chapters of First Chronicles? Well, yeah, most of us, after the first 12 chapters of some unpronounceable name begat children who had equally unpronounceable names who begat, like it's 16, did you have, I've read it. Not this year. Long time ago. And I don't go back and read it very often. So, I mean, in a sense, we all have favorite parts of our Bible and parts we don't like. For a huge number of years, this is going to defy me. Oh, there we are. For a huge number of years, Abraham wasn't one of my favorite characters in the Bible. I'll tell you why. Because every time during my spiritual life, when I found myself reading the stories of Abraham, who God calls to pack up and leave everything he was comfortable with and go off to somewhere completely strange and different, God was preparing me for transitions and major uprootings in my life. And it got to the point where I didn't want to look at Genesis chapter 12 ever again. So that's why not Abraham. But there are promises that are so precious to Abraham and Abraham's children, and that's us. And, in order to absorb certain vitamins, you need other elements in your body. I've been told. I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. But, for example, in order to really absorb the vitamin D that your body needs, apparently you need zinc. Now, if you wanted to really be nasty, you'd ask me what foods you eat in order to get zinc, and I don't have a clue. So my vitamin D might not be at the top. In order to absorb the promises and the faith from the promises of God, we need to add some elements to it. We need to do something in order to get all of the good out of what we're consuming. And most of us have not really been helped to learn to do that. And I want to tell you that for a year and a half, this has not really been as activated in my life as it has been over the last 2 months. The Bible says this: faith comes by hearing from the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. Now, there are several Greek words that are translated as word. There's logos, which is the written word, or which is Christ, the incarnate word. But the rhema is that word that God breathes freshly into our spirit that allows us to kind of respond in faith. Another verse that kind of frames the same idea is this verse from Galatians. You didn't receive... Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law or by the hearing of faith? So there's this whole issue of hearing by faith, or of chewing on the promises to get all the good out of them. Let me tell you about something else I don't know anything about. Apparently, cows ruminate. That is, they have several stomachs, and they chew their food, and they swallow it, and then they regurgitate it back into their mouths, and they chew it again, and they do that a number of times till all the good has been absorbed. What a wonderful image. Yeah. But you know, we need to learn to do that. And when Tim Mann was here a number of months ago, I was so impressed. When he comes, I love it and I hate it. I love it because he teaches some really great deep things. I hate it because he really makes me rethink almost everything I believe. And then he came to one session, and I thought, who stole Tim and put this kindergarten teacher in here? Because where I was expecting these deep, complicated, rearrange all my theology kind of ideas, he said, you want to have faith? Faith comes from the promises. And in order to really get the benefit from the promises of God, you take a journal and you write them down and you read them to yourself in the morning and at night, and they will actually give you the kind of faith that the Bible talks about. That's like kindergarten, isn't it? I learned that when I started to walk with the Lord. Of course, I haven't done it for a while. And I started to do it, and I was getting verses and getting verses and getting verses, and somehow somebody stuck a page back in my Bible, and Genesis 12 was there, the promises of Abraham. I thought, oh dear Lord, not another major transition and upheaval in my life. Please, please, please. And I began to meditate and pray the blessings of Abraham. And I just want to unpack for you what I got out of that, and challenge you to believe some of the same kinds of things. So, why would we be interested in Abraham? Genesis is the book of beginnings, right? God creates the world. It's the beginning of the world. God creates Adam and Eve. It's the beginning of the human race. Abraham is a special point of beginning for God. Because when God chose Abraham, he chose Abraham to create for himself an entire people that he would call his own. To make family, if you like. And so Abraham is the beginning of this family that God wants for his own. And God is so foolish, isn't he? I mean, if you were going to want to start a significant tribe to follow you, would you start with a 90-year-old guy and his sterile wife? How much more foolish could you get, right? I mean, it's completely ridiculous. It is absolutely, totally. I want you to understand how ridiculous it is. Because the rest of these promises of God, as we begin to apply them to ourselves, we're going to say, you know what? That stuff is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that. God would have to be God. So it's the beginning of a people of God, but it's the beginning of a miraculous people of God who couldn't be there without God's miracle. And you know what? That's your story and my story. Because we would not be Christians today if it had not been for the miracle power of God in our lives. I'm here today because I'm a miracle. And you know what? The church is the miracle people of God today. Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not be able to withstand it when it's ready to advance. My translation. But it's accurate. Check it out. It doesn't talk about us being barricaded in, trying to keep the enemy out. It talks about us taking enemy territory. Anyway, I don't want to. That's a whole other couple of sermons there. But the church is a miraculous people of God. The church would not exist if God had not created it with an absolute ridiculous miracle. I mean, think about how silly it was. Jesus, working with 12 guys who were not very instructed and were slow learners. It sounds a little bit like church, doesn't it? And just when the thing starts to get going, he gets killed. Sounds like a good plan? But the miracle working power of God goes so far beyond that. I don't want to go there either today. Here's the promise. This is what we want to look at. God's promise to Abraham. The Lord said to Abraham, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. You understand this transition, uprooting stuff that I don't like? Next part. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curses you. And all the people of the earth will be blessed through you. Wow. So, when I have occasion to speak in churches, and God has opened some amazingly strange doors for me to work with Presbyterians and Mennonites, and now a Baptist church that wants my services. God is unusual. But you know, when I talk about the promises of God and the blessings of God and prosperity and all that God brings through the kingdom, there are some people who want to say, well, you know, we're not really sure that all of those promises are for us. We had Eli Miller here quite a number of times back, and I remember somebody asked him this question: can a Christian have demons or not? And I thought, oh, this is a really great question, because it's the quickest way to divide any group of people who say they're believers. And I waited for his answer. It was so smart. He said a Christian can have anything they want. All right? So you want the blessings of God? They are yours, folks. They're promised. And you can have them. But if you don't want them, you don't have to have them. If you'd rather live in poverty than in wealth, you're allowed to do that. If you want to live in need, going from crisis to crisis to crisis, instead of God having prepared you a blessed way, which is straight and direct instead of bent all over the place, you're allowed to do that. But what does God want for us? God wants for us to be able to claim these promises for our own. They belong to us. Look what it says. Understand then that those who believe are children of Abraham. Okay, smarty pants. Why didn't this work for you last year when you were going through hell and everything was going wrong? You know what? I was a Christian, but I was not believing in the promise of the blessing of, not like I'm believing today, because I hadn't taken time to write it down and meditate on it and to ask God what it meant for me and to pray it morning and night and to receive from God what He was giving me from it. And that has started, friends, because now I'm not just a Christian, but I'm actually a believer in the promises of God. And those who are believers in the promises that God gave to Abraham, if you believe the promises God gave to Abraham, then they're yours. If you don't want to believe them, you don't have to. It's all up to you. So those who have faith are blessed along with Abraham. We have exactly the same promises that God gave to Abraham. Every one of us who will choose to believe the promises can claim them. If I don't have that right, please show me where I misinterpreted this. If anyone should show any just cause why McCann should not preach these verses, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. This is the third time of asking. So we want to read this promise to Abraham, but we want to read it through New Covenant filters, through New Covenant eyes. And there is such a danger when we read things with the Old Covenant mindset. Now I got 3 sermons on understanding the difference between Old and New Covenant. Let me give you 3 sermons in a sentence and a half. Sounds like this. Old Covenant: because we obey all of the rules that God gives, therefore we can have His blessing. Okay? Many of us still have some of that, find the right word. Some of us still have some of that very bad thinking Because life has trained us that way. Family relationships have trained us that way. And even our own sense sometimes of how the church operates trains us that way. If we're good and we obey, then we might get some scraps that are left over. But the new covenant works this way. Because God loves me unconditionally and chooses to bless me beyond measure because He's promised to do so, and He never breaks His promises, therefore, I am now equipped and prepared and delighted to obey. Now, it's the same thing. It's blessing and obedience, but the order is shifted. And as we read the promises of God to Abraham, we need to make sure that we read them in the right order. So, it starts with, okay, Abraham, if you leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I show you, I will bless you. That's old covenant. So, how do I read that with new covenant glasses? Isn't that cute? That took longer than the whole rest of the slide presentation. I will make you into a great... We start with the blessing. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I make your name great. You will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you. And whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. The Lord said to Abraham, leave your country, your people, your father's household. Go to the land I will show you. So the blessing. What is this blessing that God has for us? Let's just break it down very quickly. I will make you into a great nation. Now, I was finalizing this sermon on Friday and having my typical conversation with God. My favorite New Testament verse. The father of the son who had demons in him, when Jesus comes down from the Mount of Transfiguration and Jesus challenges him, he says, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Lord, I believe, help me in my... And most of us, most of the time, are a mix of believing and not believing. I mean, that's the reality. But there are ways to move from one to the other. It has to do with chewing on these promises. It has to do with getting the right substances in there so we absorb all the vitamins from these things. I will make you a great nation. Great, meaning great in number, great in importance, great in honor, having favor and grace with God and men. That was what the Scriptures declared about Jesus, that He grew in grace and favor with both God and men. That was the case for the early apostles, Acts chapter 2. They grew in favor with God and man. That's what God has for us when He says, I want to make you into a great nation. Wow. Now, remember, God said that to 90-year-old Abraham and his sterile wife, right? And God says, when I look at this promise for me, God says, I'm going to make you great. A great nation. Great in number. Great in importance. Great in influence. Great in favor with God and man. Well, great in number is a bit of a challenge. I mean, I got two boys who grew up in church, neither of whom are serving the Lord. I had 5 people that I considered my spiritual sons. Only one couple of which are left. Wait a minute. This is God's idea, isn't it? Is that any more foolish than picking Abraham and Sarah? I mean, I don't understand how God will make of me a great nation. But I understand if I'm going to be more than one, that my kids need to be there. And so I've been just taking this as a promise from God. He doesn't have a whole lot of choice. He has promised me, child of Abraham, believing in the promises of God, that my nation will be great, that my descendants will be numerous. My spiritual sons are going to come back to the place where they need to be. My spiritual son who is active is going to have grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the faith. My kids are coming back to faith, and they're going to be serving God in an amazing way. I'm claiming the promises. What are you claiming? What is this church claiming? You need a little boost in attendance and a small increase in the finances? Yeah, that would be really nice. That's not what God has for you. God wants to make you into a great nation, a power, an influence. I will bless you. Wow. And make you a blessing. And all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. Wow. I will bless you. Bless you. Right? Was that nice? Yeah, so what? I mean, what is that? Bless you all. God bless you. You look so cute sitting there. I know. Bless, to make happy, to bring to a place of contentment. Well, contentment and grumbling are mutually opposite, right? So, would God bring all the grumbling people around me? Would He bless them and bring them to the place of contentment? To confer prosperity. Oh, really? Yep. To grant success in undertakings. Whoa. Why did my business lose money for the last 3 years? Because I wasn't claiming the promises of God. Not in faith. I haven't looked completely at January yet, but I'm going to tell you, January has already done as well as 6 months of last year. Success in undertakings, with favor and graces increasing in abundance. That's what God means when He chooses to bless us. God has chosen to bless me because I'm a child of Abraham, because I am exercising faith in the promises He gave to my father Abraham. And therefore, I am blessed. There is no option. I have prosperity. I have contentment. I have peace. I have everything that I could possibly need. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be some complications in my life. If you knew the story of my life, you would understand that I'm not talking about some sort of rosy view of life that isn't real. But I'm in faith reaching for all that God has for me. I will make your name great. Name, reputation, fame. I'm almost 65 years old. And starting life over in lots of ways. Started a business just a few years ago. Started my own independent ministry just a few years ago. And last year, the number of invitations I had to minister in places went this way. It was kind of like the general economy, right down into the toilet. And it started on January 1st by the church, the one church, a Mennonite church, that invites me to come once a month to speak to their congregation. Sent me the list for this year, and they only want me every second month. And who knows who I am anyway? I mean, I hang around here, and Pastor Dave has to introduce me to most of you because you don't even really know who I am, right? Well, many of you. No, there's some of you. Do you know who I am? Tell me all about me. You don't have a clue, right? I mean, so what about this having a wonderful name thing? But God says He's got promotion. He's got a name for me. He's going to bring me to a place. And while I was looking at this part of the verse and having this wonderful, I believe, I doubt conversation with God on Friday, just typing up this slide, I had agreed with God and my own conscience not to answer my BlackBerry if it rang. Because I don't want to be distracted when I'm working on God's stuff. And I thought I had the ringer off, and it rang. So I looked at who it was because I was just going to put ignore. Except I didn't recognize the name or the phone number, and I was really curious about who it was. So, hello? Is this? Yes, it is. Our pastor left suddenly on Tuesday. He has resigned. We had no forewarning. We did not know it was coming. And our church and leadership are in distress. Somebody gave us your name. Could you come and preach the next 4 Sunday nights for us? How'd they get my name? Well, there was somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who might have trusted me to go and talk to Baptists. It's God. And it's all happening so easily now, when last year with all my struggling and all of my website and self-promoting and advertising, it went the other way. God has promised to bless me. Why? Because I'm a believer in the promises. I'm a child of Abraham. Am I obedient? Ooh. Next question, please. Of course I am. At least 70% of the time. I mean, that's not enough to earn blessings. Thank God the blessings come. And as a result of being so blessed, I want to obey. More and more and more. God, you want me to be more obedient? More blessings, please. In fact, I'm thinking about a little disobedience this afternoon just to get some extra blessing. No, that's not true. Don't do that. Wipe that off the tape. My name would be great in importance and influence and distinction. Wow. I am so excited to see what this is going to be like in the next few months, because this has come alive and God is doing this stuff. Pastor Dave, you may have to book me a year ahead next year. You will be a blessing. Why would God choose to bless me? Because He wants to bless everybody around me. And I am God's blessing machine for the people around me. God blesses us so that we can bless others. What God gives me, He gives me to share. When God keeps me up all night by revealing some unpleasant and uncomfortable truth, I have a responsibility to share it so that you're all under the same truth. God spoke to me January 1st. When I say God spoke, like, I'm not hearing voice. I work with psychologists all the time, so I have to be very careful about telling them I hear voices. So, I don't hear. It's, that little knowing on the inside. God said, because you're going to be a blessing machine, and because I'm going to bless you abundantly this year, every restaurant that you go to in January, I want you to leave 3 times the tip you usually do. All right? Wednesday, I was working at the hospital. I had on a corduroy shirt and my very favorite T-shirt, which has a wolf on it. I love wolves. And I walked past the nursing station, looking like the chaplain, with the wolf on my shirt. And the head nurse said, "Oh, wow. My daughter would just love that." And so, comically, I made like I was going to take the shirt off my back and give it to her. And we all had a laugh, and then I buttoned my shirt up, and I went on with my duties. I got home. God said, "Wash the shirt, put it in a bag, and be a blessing." Wow. I blessed somebody with a second-hand shirt that was like about 8 years old, I think. But I heard God say it. We are blessed with everything we have in order to be a blessing. I read a book that blessed me a couple of months ago, and it was so clear. And that was December, when everything was not yet going as wonderfully as it was. And God said, "Buy this many copies and you give them to all these people." Well, they can buy their own books. I could just recommend the title and tell them it's a real good book, right? Wow. Blessing others means sharing. Freely you have received, says the scripture, freely give. And it's the result. The result is distribution. A number of years ago, when I was responsible for overseeing some departments of the Salvation Army, they moved buildings for their place where they store the food and everything. And they called it the warehouse. And in the warehouse, they stockpiled pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of material. And if I were to go in and ask for something, it was terrible. It was like you had to jump through so many hoops to get just a little bit. And somebody had a real brilliant idea about 2 years later. It wasn't me this time. But they decided they were going to change the name of this building. And instead of calling it the warehouse, they started to call it our distribution center. You want to know what happened? The attitude changed. And when you walked into the distribution center, the shelves were mostly empty. But you know what? It never was in want. Can you outgive God? Are you a warehouse? Or do you want to be a distribution center? I told God last year, before all this stuff started to happen, before I die, I might be 860 by the time, but before I die, I want to give away $1 million. And on my spiritual father's advice, I've started to keep track of it, not to be proud, but I want to know when I've succeeded. And God has given me some wonderful and bizarre ways to do that. I can't tell you about them now, but I can tell you later. I will bless those who bless you. This is wonderful. Anyone who blesses me because I'm a child of Abraham, God will bless. Believer or not believer. You bless me, God has bound himself to his own promise to bless you. Isn't that what it says? And so I have started to pray specifically for the people who are a blessing in my life, or have been a blessing to me. Bless this person. Honor your promise. Bless them abundantly. Let it overflow. So, Pastor Debbie and I are associate ministers. That's a wonderful connection with Destiny. It means we don't get paid. I mean, we can take expenses and salary from any money that we bring in through our ministry operation. And Pastor Debbie and I had been talking about some of the stuff that I've learned to do or not learned to do, and how she might apply it or not apply it. And she took me to lunch, and she paid for lunch. And I said, wow, you have really blessed me. You know, God's going to bless you. Which was a wonderful beginning to this whole thing, right? Because God promises to do that. And so just before Christmas, I was getting these books ready that I had bought to give to everybody. And God said to me, make a financial gift to Pastor Debbie. Now, I have her permission to tell this story. And I said, okay. And I was preparing to authorize money to go from my ministry account, huge, to her ministry account, marginally less huge. And I thought, yeah, what would be nice? Christmas, $100, $150 maybe. And I was just typing the email to Sandy saying, move money from my account to Pastor Debbie's account. And God said, $1 a day. What? I mean, I'm not going to each day give her $1. No, $1 a day, $365. So I authorized moving money from one account to another, $365, $1 a day. All right? By the way, does anyone have $1 that they will give me right now? I need $1. First come, first blessed. Well, either that or the word is not true. No, I only want $1. I only want $1. You can bless me later, but I want $1. I need $1. Your lack of attention to detail was amazing, because this is a leap year, 366 days. So now I have square accounts with God, and thank you. You are blessed. Now, okay. Now, God has promised to bless me because I blessed a child of Abraham, right? So the promise that God gave to Debbie, that he would bless anyone who blesses her, I'm going to be blessed, right? In theory. In theory. So I'm sitting there working in this undisturbed manner. I've now thrown my phone in the corner, so nobody else is going to call me. And I'm working on my sermon, and I'm thinking about this slide, and I'm playing with an envelope that's in the clutter on my desk over here. I know it's come in. It's come from the States. I know it's money that I earned. Okay? So I allowed myself to be distracted just a little bit, and I opened the envelope just out of curiosity. And let me just show you the mathematical confirmation. There were 2 checks in the envelope instead of 1. And so I got a check for $147.50 and $225 US, right? Which comes to $372.50. Isn't that wonderful? It was a nice distraction. That's all it was. Until I remembered, wait a minute, this has to go in your business account. All your business account needs to be in Canadian funds, so you need to convert this to Canadian dollars. So I took the current rate of Canadian dollars and I converted them. $147.50 comes out to $144.27. $225 came out to $220.73. Isn't that amazing? Anybody do the math? What? Do you have any? I mean, $370 or $365. It's money. It's all. But somehow, God just blew me away with the fact that He had made sure that I understood that I was going to be blessed, at least to the measure that I had blessed. It's just so. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way that God kind of shows up to confirm what He's doing. Okay. I will curse you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. To curse to speak against, to insult, to deliberately injure. And I want to tell you, if you know the story of my life, this was going to be an amazing part of this sermon. I have examples that I won't share with you that were dancing in my head. And just as I was beginning to figure out how to share this part of this with you, God said, next slide. This is not your business. So I had a little forgiveness exercise to work through and move on to the next slide. Until all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Or another translation says, and will bless themselves through your example. All the peoples of the earth. This ripple of blessing within the family of God, as we bless in one way or another, and if we bless a believer, someone who has faith in the promises that God has given to Abraham, we are blessed in return. And anybody who blesses me because I'm a child of Abraham, whether they're a believer or not, God says He'll bless them. And that ripple of blessing and sharing and distribution of all the goodness of God and all the hope that there is in God will touch every single individual on planet Earth. Wow. I mean, that's what it says. I have started a ripple, the butterfly effect. I have started a ripple that has the potential, and with God's power, will touch all the peoples of the earth. Oh, wait a minute, that's a little exaggerated, right? That's almost as stupid as starting a family with a 90-year-old guy and a sterile wife, right? Isn't that it? Are you still being blessed? Yeah. He was the first victim of this overflow, I think, or one of the first. Wow. Tim usually phones me and says, Can I share the truth? Yeah. Tim usually phones me and says, can you pray for me? I'm having a terrible time. I'm just feeling... And so I see Tim's phone call come in, and I have to find my strength before I answer sometimes. And I can't remember if he phoned or texted and said, after we had lunch together, I don't know what's going on today. Everywhere I go, I'm being blessed. I'm almost not afraid to take his phone calls anymore. And because I'm blessed, because the church is blessed, because as believers we are blessed, then we have this part of obedience. And you know what? I'm gonna go really fast through this. I could do it. I could talk a long time about this stuff, but I'm going to go really fast. If you want to know more about it, do your homework, because the important part was the first part. Okay? Because when you allow God to bless you to the measure that He wants to bless you, when you allow God to create you as a blessing machine, when you know that every time you bless a believer, you're going to be blessed, when you know that even an unkind or unbelieving person who blesses you is going to be blessed by God, the rest of this stuff falls in line real easy. God says, because, child of Abraham, because, David, I'm blessing you this year beyond measure, here's what I want you to do. Because, Destiny Church, this is going to be a year of blessing beyond measure as you believe in the promises of Abraham. Here's what I require of you, or I ask of you. Leave your country. Get uprooted. Leave the limits that you have so easily accepted in the past. No limits to the blessing of God. Leave your security. I guess, Pastor David, you jumped into that one last year, right? Financial security is wonderful. You know, when I retired from the Salvation Army, a very top-down military kind of organization, the first sensation I had was, thank God, I am free, I am free. And the second thought I had was, oh my God, there's no more salary coming in. What am I going to do with this freedom when I can't figure out how to pay the bills? That was September of 2007. You see, slow learners. But I'm getting it, right? Might be late, but I'm getting it. Leave your comfort zone. You know, Destiny's a really nice place. It is a comfortable place to come. You know why it's comfortable? Because I have a sense that I know what's going to happen, and because I'm fairly comfortable here. Ooh. Leave the comfort zone. That could be like taking somebody who is really phobic about hospitals and cannot be around suffering because they're so sensitive and saying, I want you to be the hospital chaplain. In a hospital where people have screws and pipes and tubes in their legs and have broken all sorts of things, are in distress and in pain. It's kind of like asking an old guy and his sterile wife to make babies, right? To depend upon God for heaven's resources. To step out. Do you need to ask God, what do I need to do? What do I need to leave? In terms of my own security and comfort. To really follow you in faith because you are blessing me so much. Not to be blessed. You're going to be blessed before you leave. What else did he say? Leave your family. What does that mean? Well, the interesting thing is it must mean more than what it seems to mean, because when God said to Abraham, leave your family, he packs up his camel and his tent and all of his relatives and goes off on the journey. Read the story. And God doesn't stop and say, whoa! I said no family. No. So leave your family. What does that mean for Abraham, for you, for me, for the church? Leaving your family is leaving the circumstances of your birth. I love it. A couple of years ago, when Michael was sitting up here, and I came up and I shook his hand and I said something, Mike, and he said, it's Michael. So I said I'd known him as Mike from the beginning, but now it's Michael. Well, you know, if you've grown up in a family and you were little Johnny, you might be the senior lawyer of a major firm in Montreal, but in your family's mind, you're still little Johnny. There are things that have been put on us that we don't need to carry and we don't need to bear. Our identity, the limits of our authority. Blessed beyond measure. Why would it have limits? Leave your father's household, your father's identity. There's a whole wonderful thing in that book I shared with a few people on socioeconomic paradigm. Change your worldview. Let's leave all of that. Study it if you want to know about it, but be blessed first. Here's where we go. Oh, look at that. The verses in reversed order. That's wonderful. I was brilliant when I did that. I will make you into a great nation. Abraham and Sarah. Dave McCann. Destiny Church. You. Little late in life to start being great, isn't it? Better late than never. That's absolutely right. If you don't start being great today, you'll never be great. And there's no reason you can't be. Right? Too young? Too old? Not rich enough? Not poor enough? I don't care. 5 more years to go before I can start. You know, erase that word. Okay, because I'm being good, 70%. Make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. You will not change your life by listening to this sermon. I read this verse 38 years ago, 36 years ago, 34 years ago, 20 years ago, last week. You need to take it and write it out and read it faithfully morning and night. Unpack everything that God has in it for you, and keep doing that until it starts to work. It works. It works. It works. Here's how I want to close. Oh, yeah. This is how I want to close. We're going to close and dismiss you, and then you can leave. Right? Is there anything else that needs to happen? Because after that, it's going to get messy. Because there are no limits. Okay. So you are in a moment. You are dismissed. I will pray, because that's what you expect. And then you are dismissed. And after you are dismissed, if you would just get away from the front, if dismissed is what you want, because you can have whatever you want, right? And then, if you would like me to pronounce a blessing over you, I would be delighted to bless you, especially if you're starting to believe the promise of God, because then when I bless you, I'm getting blessed. Now, that's not my reason for blessing you. I'm blessing you because I want to bless you. Or if you want to bless me, you're welcome to speak a blessing over me, or bless me any way that God tells you to bless me. Almost any way that God tells you to bless me. And then you have the promise, whether you're even a firm believer or not, that God will bless you. Because anyone who blesses me, God says, I'm stuck. You know, I got an issue with this guy. I would like to be rough on him, but he's blessed you, so now I'm really stuck, because I promised I would bless everybody who blesses you, including him. I mean, that's it, right? So you may want to bless me, and I'm going to invite Pastor Debbie to come up here too, and Pastor Dave, you're welcome. Pastor Kathy is looking at bless Pastor Kathy. All right? Mike and Sandy, it's up to you if you want to be. If you maybe how, like I said, I haven't really got this picture in my mind very clearly. It's going to be a mess up here, but you will be dismissed. Father, in Jesus' name, we declare the blessing of Abraham over all of his children, that you would increase us to be believers, to have faith in the promises that you are giving us. Give us more and more promises. Show yourself to be the God who honors each and every promise. Let this be the year of prosperity and straightforwardness and directness for each and every one who follows you. In Jesus' holy name, I pray. You are dismissed, and if you would like to receive a blessing or give a blessing to someone in leadership here, just come up and we'll figure out how to do it.